right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Paquin, who is in an equally beautiful Stewart on the east coast of Florida. How are you doing, Tony?
I am great, John. How about yourself? Good to be today.
Excellent. And you're a seasoned healthcare technology entrepreneur with over 3 decades experience building and scaling companies in healthcare technology and regulated markets, co-founder, chairman, and CEO of iRemedy Healthcare. You lead an AI-enabled procurement and supply chain platform that enhances transparency, resilience, and efficiency for manufacturers, providers, and government agencies. You have founded and public and private companies like Agency One and Medinex, and co-invented 12 US patents in AI and machine learning. Absolutely fantastic. And also authored books including The End of Us, The Retail Healthcare Revolution, and you host the Supply Side podcast. Excellent. All right. So just tell me a little bit about your journey, and especially your journey with AI, because I mean obviously AI has become a huge thing and everything recently, but you've obviously been involved in it for a long time. And that
Yeah.
just give me your impression of how is AI impacting like the industry you're in now with the medical procurement, but also just give me an idea of what you think the impact of AI generally is right now, and how you think it's going to evolve.
Absolutely, John. Happy to do that. So first off, when you think of my background, really, I'm a software guy. So, I've been in
Hmm.
all those companies you mentioned were technology companies, and, a variety of different sales approaches. I know your emphasis on sales, and, I'm a believer that nothing happens until a salesperson sells something. But we developed software. So I've been a software guy for 30 or 40 years. The reason I bring that up is because I've
Yeah,
lived through a number of these revolutions, if you will,
yeah.
from us to Windows to the internet, and now into artificial intelligence. And, it's really interesting to observe when you go through these, because you think the world is going to change completely, when you go through these
Mhm.
events. I remember Y2K, you have to be old enough to remember, but the year
Oh yeah.
2000, everybody thought the world would come to an end on January 1st, 2001. Of course, it didn't. AI is unique, though. My experience is that all these other changes happened, and they were big and important. The internet, for example,
Mhm.
and they really changed the world. And even in the early days, the PC computer revolution changed the world. Apple and
Yeah.
Dell, who came up with the idea of we all have computers on our desks now. That was a new idea. So those things were
Mhm.
big. But I will tell you something as a guy in the industry, and I mean, my CTO was the vice president of technology at Amazon. I mean, we've done
Oh.
work with really top tier, software
Mhm.
people. And I can tell you that all these things happen slower than you thought they were going to, right? You thought it
Yeah.
was going to happen in a year or two, and it ended up taking 5 or 10. Now it eventually happened, but it took
Mhm.
longer than we expected. You can kind of see a modern version of that right now with Elon Musk, who I'm a big supporter of. I personally think the guy's absolutely brilliant. But his forecast, like I drive a Tesla, I think the car is an amazing piece of technology, but he'll achieve his goal, but a number of years longer than he probably was,
Mhm.
believing that it was going to take. These things just take a little longer.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, artificial intelligence, man, I'm telling you, it's going so fast. It is in my 30 or 40 career, I've never seen anything. We're not talking about years, we're talking about months, and in some cases,
Mhm.
weeks, and in some cases, days. And it's
Yeah.
having impact on certain industries first. A big one being my industry, which is the software development world, is changing dramatically. And in your world, you think about CRM. CRM systems really
Yep.
going to be impacted by AI, right? So
Absolutely.
I think it's massive, massive changes happening very, very rapidly. And I think you compare today to 6 months ago, the world has changed dramatically, and it's important that everybody realizes that. But if you think of today versus 6 months or a year from now, it's hard to even imagine the amount of change
Yeah.
that's coming our way. And I try and tell, adult kids who are all in the 30s sort of thing, they're all launched doing well. But that generation, I'm like, you need to master AI. That's what you
Yeah.
need to do, because this is a real thing. This is not a minor change in the way we all operate.
No, 100%. I agree, and I agree with you. I also, I come from the pre. I'm a dinosaur too. I come from the pre-internet age and everything, and have been through all of these, all of these changes. And you're right. I mean, the the change was the change was rapid, but it wasn't like it was. As you said, it was years transforming
It
over
took
many
time.
years, right?
Yeah,
This has been, as you said, transforming in months, and now stuff coming out like the MCP servers and stuff like. I mean, it's just becoming it's getting to a crazy element already. I think the big struggle, Tony, and is for people figuring out, even in sales, like people figuring out, where do I belong now? Or where's the best use of me if AI is going to start taking care of a lot of other stuff?
yeah. Well, so you think about it. I'm very first off, I'm a sales-driven CEO. If you look
Hmm.
at my great successes in business, they were really about sales and marketing more than the technology. I mean, I'm very proud of our technology, but I think you got to be sales-driven. I think
Yeah.
that where you're going to see the impact in our area of sales and marketing is one, in marketing is going to completely transform and become
Yep.
highly automated by AI. And,
Yeah.
and to the point of inbound lead generation, right? So, we're doing some phenomenal things. I think a lot of people are right now in that area, and I think that's going to continue. Now, the interesting counterintuitive part of it, though, is I think that in the end, the AI revolution will create even more importance in person to person relationships and
Yep.
communication. You know, it's like things are going to become so artificial, robots and videos and fake videos
Yeah.
and mass email content and stuff. At the end of the day, you're going to have to talk to a client, have a relationship, and close the deal. And so,
Yeah.
in a surprising sort of way, I think the salesperson is actually going to be more valuable than ever. And a lot of
Mhm.
the work that they may have considered to be drudgery, note taking,
Yep.
updating the CRM, lead generating. I think AI, we're already seeing it, where we have our Fireflies note taker tied to our CRM, tied to our AI,
Mhm.
all those things are all automatic. So that kind of stuff, I think for the sales guys, it could be a huge benefit. But I do believe a year or two from now, it's going to be about person to person relationships more than ever. So it's an interesting twist. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that would be our thesis as well. I think if you're a transactional or task based like salesperson, then you know that can get replaced. But if
Yeah.
you are somebody, if you look across and say, yeah, as you said, there's a lot of stuff I do today that doesn't bring value to, that it doesn't bring value to the prospect or customer. I'm not doing enough. This is back end stuff that I'm just caught up in doing. All that goes away. Then the onus is on you as a salesperson to say, okay, now build a relationship, be creative in solutions and all of that. And and if you're that kind of salesperson, and that's why you get into sales, which the best people are, then I think you're gonna have a great time. If you're a task driven person, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, no, I think you've broken that down exactly right. If you're an order taker, yeah, there's going to be a digital agent take it over and do better, than
Y-
you're doing right now. But yeah, if you really have that subjective value add of relationship, because what's important, and I'm old school as you can imagine, but I'm still I like to jump on a plane and go sit down with a big client with a whiteboard and talk about their needs for 3 or 4 hours and have
Right.
a relationship and close a big deal, right? And I think that's just it's going to be as important as when you can connect with a person, have a dialogue, really probe and understand their needs. It's so important to really get that,
Mhm.
and then develop trust. That's going to be really powerful. But if the AI can get you the lead, call the lead, do some initial education, help you with collateral support material, build out your CRM, well, that's just
Mhm.
going to kind of amp up a little bit, right? Give you more time to talk to people.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned the one word there that I think is going to be critical in all this, because it goes back to what you were saying a few moments ago about. I mean, there's so much fake stuff out there. There's all, we don't know what's real, what's not real. So the trust factor is going to be huge, and that's I think that's where, as you said, like people are still going to want to have that trust relationship with that human being, with that salesperson, with those people, whoever the decision makers are at the customer, to have that direct relationship. And I think the trust element becomes more important in this AI world.
Oh, I think you've hit on something that it's going to affect every aspect of our life, from politics
Mhm.
to government, but and then into relationships and business and everything else. Is the fakery, if you will,
Mhm.
videos and content, for example, will be so good that you will not be able to watch a video and really know if it's fake or not. You won't know.
Yeah.
So what you will know is if I'm sitting in a room with somebody and that's a human, you know, and
Yeah.
if I'm on the phone with them, then I get to know them. I'll be able to know that they're a human, and I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be everything. And the bizarre part of
Mhm.
this is, in that old world that you and I were referring to,
Yep.
this vision would have taken 5 or 10 years, but we're
Mhm.
talking 6 months. This is happening very, very, very rapidly.
No,
So yeah, it keeps
absolutely.
me.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing
Yeah,
with you. I mean, I'm sure it's you got lots of stories, but I recall the reluctance of when I was at, because I came from Ireland. I was in moved to Silicon Valley during the dot com in the mid '90s or so, and even getting big companies to move to the internet was massive. I mean, it took it forever. I remember very large financial customers of ours actually sending a team in to visit the data center, like taking them down into the cages. I know for anybody under a certain age, you've no idea what we're talking about here, but bringing people into
yeah,
cages
that's
and then doing a security audit and everything. But it seems to me like AI is kind of sprinted ahead of everybody, and now people are playing catch up as opposed to kind of figuring out what do I have to do now, as opposed to well, I have to think about this for a long time.
yeah. I Yeah, I've talked to people like Mark Cuban and others on this subject, and I think one of them said it well when they said, spend an hour a day on AI. Everybody should, you know,
Mhm.
and get out front as much as you can, because if you think AI is you go to ChatGPT and ask it to plan out a vacation for you, that's not
Yeah.
really AI. Or if you think AI is redraft this email or look at this document, well,
Mhm.
that's not bad usage, but that's not what we're talking about. You know, we're
Mm,
talking about things that are far more complex and significant and almost unimaginable. We have a project where you talk about our procurement software.
yeah.
We tried 5 years ago, and as you saw, I wrote a bunch of patents on AI
Mhm.
digital agents back around 2020. I have 12 patents issued, and we were trying to analyze kind of the resilience of the supply chain. 90% of all
Mhm.
drugs that you and I and our families would use are made in China and India
Yep.
for the most part. And that's like a real risk for a number of reasons, both quality and national security. And so we were trying to create a database that would analyze that for us and sort of get where is everything made. And it was very difficult. 5 years ago, we couldn't do it. I mean,
Mhm.
you just couldn't pull it off machine wise. Today, we're doing it, and it's unbelievably complicated. And the agents are just, we have what we call swarms of agents, and they're just
Wow.
solving the problem. So it's pretty remarkable. One thing that I describe to people who aren't tech oriented is really what happens with this technology is you as an individual user get access to a supercomputer the
Yep.
size of what the NSA used 5 years ago. So as an individual person, you now have massive computing power for like 25 bucks a month type of thing. And that's
Mhm.
part of what's happening. It's a truly remarkable, situation. So it's important that I think your point is you got to embrace this. Like
Yes.
it's an important thing. You can't don't think you can just go, yeah, no, I'm gonna just keep doing my thing. It's not gonna work out if that's what your approach is. You're gonna have a tough
Yeah.
time, you know.
No, absolutely, and, yeah, I like the supercomputer. I tell people now that, I feel like I have access to a group of PhDs who also have, like, 40 years business experience,
They
and that's
know,
who.
like they have all the information. So like when you're
Yeah.
analyzing something, they literally know all of it. You can imagine I'm in healthcare. And so in
Yeah,
healthcare, you got doctors, yeah. Think about that. Like, it's not going to be long. You're going to go, I can't believe they used to let humans diagnose disease. Like
I know,
like my
I know,
grandchild, I'm sure will say, she'll go, oh, I can't believe back in the old day, they let some guy stand in a room and come up with what he thought was wrong with somebody, right? Based on memory recall from being in med school 10 years earlier.
exactly.
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
It is. I'll
So
give you a funny
I,
example that, a funny example, a colleague of mine had to go do his blood work, the annual blood work thingy.
yeah.
So he did, and so nowadays, you get the results, even before you go in, and so he got the results, from LabCorp, wherever he went, fed it into AI, right? Got it. AI did this whole report for him and went down.
Yeah.
He goes into the he had to go into the doctor, of course, to get it reviewed. The doctor starts the review, and then he goes, "Oh, hang on a second, take a look at this." I asked AI, and the doctor looked at the document, read it, and he was like, I mean, he said you could see him visibly go, "Oh my god, this is way
Wow.
beyond what I could have come up with." You know what I mean? He said, he was, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And of course he gathered himself. But that's where we're going. So again, I think it behooves everybody to look at, where do I add value to this? Like, what am I as a human going to add to all of this? Because I'm not going to be able to. Nobody. Here's the other thing I think, Tony, is at what stage are our customers going to start saying, what how are you using AI? What are you doing for more? Like, why, when are they going to start asking us, why am I paying you for all of this stuff that AI could do?
Uh,
And if you're not using AI to do it faster, more efficiently, and I'm not getting the benefits of it, then why am I using you?
no, I think a couple of things there. One is my company, we made a decision about months ago to say we're going to lean in as an entire organization. So
Mhm.
employees are no longer, you're an employee responsible for some work. You're an employee that's really a conductor of digital agents that work on your behalf to achieve certain goals. And our entire organization is going to be that way. John, the other thing I would mention to people that I think is really important when you approach this, it can be a little intimidating because you can think, oh my God, I'm an older guy, I don't really know what the young
Mhm.
ones know, type of thing. Well, the good news is nobody knows. Like
Yeah.
everybody's in the same place. It doesn't matter if you're 60, 30, 40, 50. It doesn't really make any difference because it's all new. And
Mhm.
my son is, I have a son that's two daughters and a son. My son is 35, has an MBA from, you know, Carolina and North Carolina. And we learned in that MBA as it relates to this is irrelevant. Like 5 years
Yeah.
ago, whenever that was,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So
Hmm.
when you're in this situation, when people are listening to the podcast, for example, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm at a disadvantage. I don't know this stuff. Well, I got news for you. Nobody knows this stuff. And
Yeah.
so you can use that to your advantage. Don't be intimidated by it, because you're just like the 20-year-old or the 30-year
Yeah.
old. And if anything, the 30-year-old and 40-year-olds are a little bit really confused, because they thought they were state of the art and then they just got blown out.
Yeah.
But it's just an important thing. It's like what you knew 2 years ago, what you knew even a year ago, really is not relevant anymore. So
Yeah.
so use that to your advantage is kind of what my way of looking at it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Tony, to be honest, I think one of the things of maybe our generations and stuff is like is we have critical thinking skills, which is one of the things that I think unfortunately is not really, is not taught anymore. It's not encouraged. Um, and the good thing, if you have critical thinking skills and you engage with AI, then you can really get, because now you can really engage in a much deeper way. If you think of it, like we said earlier, if you think of it as a supercomputer or as all these experts that you have on tap, but you have to know what you're asking them and what you want them to do. And I think that's in some ways, I find that, I mean, I think I think we almost have an advantage.
Oh no, you've hit the nail on the head. That subject matter expert part of you that says, "Well, I really understand some things," and it's that interactivity
Mhm.
with the software, or with the agent. So we were trying to this supply chain analysis thing
Yeah,
that I was talking about. Well, it's extremely complicated. The industry basically wants to obscure where things are manufactured, so it's
sure.
very, very difficult to solve. But when we're solving it, our ability to interact with those digital agents, and it gives us a result, and then we're able to go, yeah, but that's not really the right result, because see what you did, you
Mhm.
came up with this, and we know that's not true. Then the agent will
Yeah.
come back, go, oh, that's very interesting. I see what you mean. And then it will attack the problem another way.
Yeah.
That interaction, which you and I have the ability to do that because of our years of experience, actually
Mm.
puts us at an advantage. So
Yeah,
yeah, because that's really what it's all about today, is your ability to interact based on your critical thinking skills, your experience. That's the actual that's the guy who's in the most powerful position. And I just hired a couple of sales reps, and one of the guys I hired was 60-year-old classic sales guy. Like he's a calls plus demos equals sales sort of
right.
thinker, but he understands the nuances, sales, and the relationships and the details, and he has a lot of skill. Now he's able to use these tools to kind of elevate his impact. So
Yeah,
it's a really interesting twist, right? Where the
I
people who
think
you
so.
think would be disadvantaged are actually the most advantaged by the situation.
Yeah, and I think also, just I mean, you mentioned a word earlier because I agree with you, and we're the same now. We're doing exactly the same thing as you. Is like we're leaning completely into AI, and we're taking, internally, we're taking AI first approach to everything, and sort of saying like, let's figure out how we can leverage it so that we can all be way more efficient in that. But you mentioned orchestrate, and I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Is that's and I've said this before that to other people, like coordinator, orchestrator, but yeah, that's your role now, is to orchestrate the agents, orchestrate the tools you have, not to be in there doing all this stuff, but to orchestrate them and then figure out, the, as I said, like figure out, the creative element on top that you can add to it and how you use it. But yeah, I think orchestrate an orchestra. You're now if you're doing it well, you're the conductor. Yeah.
Yeah, think about it. If you have a company, and those employees can run 5 to 10 digital agents each, that's like
Hmm.
having a company 2 years ago that was 50 to 100 people, but your payroll is only
Yes.
10 people. Like that's what you're looking at right now. That's pretty
Yeah.
amazing, really. Yeah.
Uh,
So
my
I'm
the
optimistic.
funny Sorry, Tony. I was saying the funny thing is you'll hear people go, "Oh, yeah, it's a bit expensive to like pay for one of these like professional like licenses for one of the, like Claude's very expensive." And
Oh
I
yeah,
go, "Claude is dirt cheap." And they go, "Well, what, but it's like a few $100s or whatever a month." And I go, "Yeah, a few $100s a month to hire 20 top like performers who can help you and everything. Like, yeah, no, it's dirt cheap."
yeah. No office, no computers, no HR, no benefits, no, all those other problems. By the way, I think you brought up, another good point, and that is one of the mistakes that people make when they're getting on AI is trying to use versions. And
Yeah,
it's a nature of the technology. You want, a premium paid like Claude is the one we use. Doesn't matter, we all get in
yeah,
arguments about. I'm also a big Grok supporter for certain
yeah.
reasons. It's tied into Twitter, so I can access Twitter
Mhm.
content better. And there's also philosophical difference between these big three: OpenAI,
Yeah,
Anthropic, and Grok. But whatever you choose, by the way, I use multiple. I use all three for reasons. But
mhm.
whatever you choose, you want the paid version, and you really want the premium version.
Yeah,
It is better. Like, don't think they're all the same. They're not the same. They're trained on more current
oh,
data. There's reasons why. And to your point, you're talking about free versus $30 a month or something like that. This is not. This is nothing from a cost
yeah,
standpoint. So you really, even on a personal level, even if you
mhm.
want to use it at home or for personal reasons, you want a paid version of the AI,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you want I premium versions. It's nothing in terms of cost, but it's better. It's hard to explain, but
Mhm.
it's a better trained
Yeah,
and more responsive. So it's an important investment
yeah.
to make.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good note to end on, Tony. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Go out there. This is, I mean, don't be silly. This is it's false economies if you're just using free versions because the value you're getting out of the premium ones are just outsized. Um, so all of Tony's information will be below this video. But before we go, Tony, just remind people again what you do.
Yeah, absolutely, John. So again, I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called iRemedy Healthcare. We have an AI-powered procurement application. Essentially, what we do, John, is we try and connect manufacturers of drugs and supplies
Hmm.
directly with their users, which are typically hospitals or government agencies, or sometimes patients.
Right.
So we have that old idea out the middlemen. We think
Hmm.
we can up 15 to 25%, and then in the
Yeah.
process create a more reliable, stable, supply chain. And then we're huge advocates of moving whenever possible manufacturing of drugs and supplies to the United States. So we believe in the
Right.
redomestication of the supply chain, and then we're here to support that. That's what we do.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Tony. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.